For joining us this morning. I want to welcome you to the Space to Inspire question and answer with Dr. Sian Proctor. I'm Dr. Lisa Young, the Faculty Director of the Center for Teaching and Learning at Scottsdale Community College, and I'll be serving as the moderator for today's program. I do have a few housekeeping topics before we get started. First of all, in this virtual environment, we have a chat window that can be used to share ideas or ask questions during this session. If you have a specific question for Dr. Proctor, please use the chat window to ask your question. To limit the amount of background noise, please keep all microphones muted during the webinar. We'll try to share as many questions as possible during our webinar. Also, we are recording today's session and we will be making it available. But before we begin, I would like to acknowledge and thank the Maricopa Community College's governing board, our college presidents, faculty and staff leadership for their collective support of this historical opportunity. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to the interim chancellor of the Maricopa Community Colleges, Dr. Stephen Gonzalez.
Thank you, Lisa, and good morning to everybody that's joining us. We're so honored to have you, and we're especially honored to have Dr. Proctor spend some time with us this morning. We know that she's extremely busy because she's got a pretty exciting event up ahead. And Dr. Proctor, I just have to say that on behalf of Maricopa, I just can't even put into words how excited we are for you, how proud we are of you, and we just know that you're making history, and it's amazing that we get to be this close to you during this time. I was recently in Salt Lake City airport, was walking by a newsstand, glanced over, and on a Time magazine, there you were. And I have to say, that's the first time that I've actually ever personally known someone on its cover of Time magazine. So that there's a first for me, and it's probably a first for many of us. So congratulations to you. And as everybody knows, she's been named among the final crew members to join Inspiration 4, the world's first all-civilian mission to space. She's going to represent the mission pillars of prosperity and will serve as the mission pilot and back up the commander and support related needs throughout the mission. I don't want to take much time away from this time that we get with you, Dr. Proctor, for this Q&A. I'm really looking forward to hearing what the questions will be and especially what your responses will be. So many blessings to you on this journey and voyage that you're about to take. And I think it's safe to say that, at least for me, and I think for many others across our system, you're going to be in our thoughts and prayers through that. So take it away, Lisa.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. And I'd like to just add a little bit more of an intro. Dr. Gonzalez, thank you so much for providing that for Cyan, for Dr. Proctor. Dr. Proctor is one of my dearest and closest friends. I got to meet her through the Maricopa Community Colleges because she's an awesome geoscience. We have that in common as well as so many other things. There are so many things I could tell you about Cyan, from her just being such an amazing listener, a great friend. For those of her students in the audience, you know what an amazing teacher she is, and she has created the space to inspire so many of us. I'm not going to take up all the time because I know you want to hear from Cyan. So with that, I would like to introduce you to my friend, Dr. Sian Proctor.
Hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here to talk to you. We are 8 days out from liftoff. So this is actually my last day. We got to come home for a couple of days, and I leave today and won't be back to the Valley until I splash down and come home. So I just wanted to be able to come and share what I've done in the last 5 months. How did I get here? What is my space story? And Maricopa is such a big part of that I just had to share some of it with you before I blasted off into space. So my motto for a while has been Space to Inspire. And the first thing that I want to do is tell you a little bit about my history with South Moutain Community College. I became a full-time professor in 1999, so I've been there for over 20 years, and I am so thankful that I have been at South Moutain. It's changed my life being a professor there. I was hired as the first full-time geology professor And since then, we've turned into the geoscience department, where not only do we teach geology, but we also teach planetary science and sustainable cities and sustainable world. And so very thankful for everything that South Moutain has done for me, both individually, but also as a teacher and educator, and an explorer. And I'm going to go into more about that in just a minute. So I guess I'm going to go into it now. But my background, I have my bachelor's in environmental science, geology, and PhD in science education. But the big thing that I want to stress is that lifelong learning has always been a thing that's been important to me. And one of the reasons why I love being a professor at South Moutain Community College is because it's helped me be a lifelong learner. And it's helped me to instill that in my students. And during my last 25 years here, I have become an explorer and a science communicator. I've been able to travel and teach around the world thanks to the Maricopa Community College District. I've had wonderful experiences that have helped me grow and become the person that I am today, so that I can go off and have this amazing experience. Some of the things that I've done is get, my pilot's license, being a polar trek and a NOAA teacher at sea, being an analog astronaut, living in Moon and Mars simulations, and also doing sabbaticals, being able to take that opportunity to go off and grow and then come back and bring that to, my students and share that with other faculty and staff. And these are really important things, because as we develop in our life, we change and we need new challenges and new ways to grow and experience our world, so that we don't get stagnated. And that's why lifelong learning is such an important part of my journey of becoming a astronaut. And so what is Inspiration 4? It is the first all-civilian mission to orbit. Now, what's interesting is that Inspiration 4 came along pretty quickly, just within last, not even a year. And so what's happened is, I don't know how many of you watched the Super Bowl, but Inspiration 4 was announced over the Super Bowl. And I don't have a TV, so I didn't watch it. But what happened was that there were 2 seats that they were going to give away to just anybody out there who was willing to apply for them. And one of them was the generosity seat, where if you donated to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, you could get the opportunity to win that seat. And the other one was the prosperity seat, where you showed yourself as an entrepreneur, you could win that seat. And I'm going to talk to you about how I won the prosperity seat. Now, to get the prosperity seat, you had to be an entrepreneur in some way. Last year during COVID, a lot of things happened. I'm normally a traveler, and I like to go away for my summers. And, we were all stuck at home, and I had all of this creative energy that I needed to do something with. So I became a space artist. And you can see my background. This is the same place that I'm sitting here. I created a lot of different space art. So when I saw the announcement for the prosperity seat, I thought, hey, this is a good opportunity for me to share my art and poetry with the world. But in order to win the seat, you had to put yourself out there on social media. So I had to create a 2-minute and 20-second Twitter video. And so I don't know if you've seen this, but I'd like to share with you, this is the video that won me the prosperity seat. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Sian Proctor, and I'm a geoscientist, explorer, and analog astronaut, and I have dreamed about going to space my entire life. I actually came that close when I was a finalist for the NASA astronaut selection process in 2009. But what I am most proud of is the fact that I have been a teacher at the community college for the past 20 years, and I have been able to inspire hundreds of thousands of students through my education and outreach. My entrepreneurial spirit lies in the fact that I combine space art with poetry. And my shop is called My Space to Inspire, and I've written an original poem to share with you. You've got space, I've got space, we all have space to inspire. That's why we dream of going higher and higher. But what is space if you can't breathe? Let's stop sucking out the air of our humanity. We have a moment to seize the light, Earth from space, both day and night.
We have J for justice, to ignite the bold. We have E for equity, to cut past the old. We have D for diversity, to end the fight. We have I for inclusion, to try to make it right. A Jedi space to rally behind, a universal force so big it binds. Inspiration to change the world, a new beginning for us to hold. It's not about you, it's not about me, it's about space to inspire for all of humanity. Science, technology, engineering, and math, sending us out on the explorer's path. But don't forget the arts, the heartbeat of time. Consider sending a poet who knows how to rhyme. So let's drop the mic and close the capsule door. But please make sure Dr. Proctor is on board. My space to inspire is what we need. Inspiration for all of humanity. I hope you will go out and use your unique space to inspire those within your reach and beyond. Thank you.
So I submitted this video on a Thursday night, and the contest ended on Sunday night. And one of the contest rules was that you had to show some ability to go viral. And in those 4 days, from Thursday to Sunday, I managed to get 70,000 people to view my video. And the reason why I wanted to show you this is because a lot of times, in order to get opportunity, we have to put ourselves out there. We have to be vulnerable and you know, say, this is something that I really want, but I have to share this with the world in order to make it happen.
Hi, everyone.
So a little bit about my crew. So we're the first all-civilian mission to orbit. And so what that means is that we're not just going up and coming back down right away. We're going to go up and we're going to stay in orbit for 3 full days. And so we're a crew of 4, and we're taking a SpaceX Dragon to space. And so this will be our home, this top part here, for 3 days when we're in orbit. We have my commander, Jared Isaacman, and he is the person who provided this opportunity and came up with inspiration for, and he has the leadership pillar. Then we have Haley Arsenault, who will be the youngest American to fly to space, and she represents the hope pillar. She is a cancer survivor. She had cancer when she was 10 years old. And so she represents that pillar of hope that you can overcome some extreme adversities and yet do amazing things. And then Chris won the generosity seat. And that was one where, again, you could donate to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital and win a ticket to space. So a little bit about me becoming an artist during COVID. And so it was something that I never would have imagined that I would do. And it's interesting because being a scientist, I've always been like, oh, you know, the arts are so cool, but I don't know, you know, I don't consider myself an artist. But being able to recognize that we all are artists in our own ways, whether we like to cook or play music, or even in the things that we do and take pride in our daily lives, there's an art to that. There was an art to living. And so for me, last year during COVID, I wanted to be able to spread cheer around the world. And so I started making these postcards that I could send out to people. And I did it first as a collage artist because I thought, oh, I'm not an artist, I'm not a painter, but I can make collage art. So I started cutting out pieces and sticking them together and sharing them with you know, social media. And it was really the response from people when I started sharing my work that gave me the confidence to be able to go and apply for the Inspiration for spot. And one of the things that is really important to me as I go to space is the idea that representation matters. There have only been 6 Black females selected for the NASA astronaut program. I tried out in 2009 and got down to the yes/no phone call, but it was a no. And out of the 6 that have flown, only 3 of them have made it to space, the top 3. And so to me, what's really, you know, amazing about this journey is that I'm going to be the 4th Black female ever to go to space. And I recognize how important that is when I think about being a role model. The role model I've played at South Moutain Community College, but now this role model, this opportunity that I've been given to be on this grand stage of our entire planet, and what that represents and what it means to be doing this at my age. A lot of times when we get into our 50s and 60s and 70s, we think that the best part of our career is over and that there's nothing left to inspire us, but that's not the case. That whole idea of lifelong learning means that there is opportunity for you if you continue to just seek it out. And so one of the things that I mentioned in the poem is this idea of a just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive space. It's really important for me that as I move out into this new realm of being the first Black female pilot of a spacecraft, that I bring this message with me of a Jedi space, so that everybody, all of you that are listening today to this presentation, that you get the idea that, hey, one day I may want to go to space, and not that you, and know that you can do that, that we are opening up the door so people who normally wouldn't think that space and space exploration is part of their narrative can now believe that it is. And so a really important part of my message is that. So what is astronaut training like? It is awesome. Being the mission pilot, I already had my pilot's license. It was something that I wanted to do when I was a kid, but I've been able to fly. I've been learning the Dragon systems as the mission pilot. I've gone on a zero-G flight. I've climbed a mountain, and I've gone back and forth between Kennedy Space Center and SpaceX headquarters multiple times, all in the last 5 months, getting myself prepared for space. And so I want to leave you with these ideas that in the past, space was about exclusive competition. To become a NASA astronaut, you had to be the best of the best. But now there's a new era of space, and it's inclusive and it's complementary. Our crew will be the third flight to space this year with civilians. So we're not the first. There were 2 suborbital flights, one with Virgin Galactic and the other with Blue Origin, that went up with civilians, and they took regular people with them. And that's what is inspiring about me. Inspiring for me is that space is changing quickly, and it's opening up to people who would never have thought that they could go. And who am I bringing with me to space? Maricopa. And so I'm so excited that I'm able to bring student art and poetry with me to space. And so with the help of South Moutain Community College, I was able to do a Space to Create contest, and already packed in the Dragon capsule are art pieces created by students, faculty, and staff that will go and fly in space with me. And I'm so excited about that. And then I have digital copies of poetry that I'll be able to read and just experience while I'm on orbit. And so thrilled to be able to do that. I've got one last video. I know we're going to get to questions, but I wanted to share this with you in case you haven't seen it. It's the Netflix trailer. One of the things that has happened is that since the beginning of the Inspiration 4 process, Time Magazine and Netflix have basically been embedded with us, documenting our story. And it launched yesterday, episodes 1 and 2. And it's a 5-part series. So 1 and 2 were put on Netflix yesterday. 3 and 4 are coming out next week, just before we go up on the 13th. And then the last one will be at the end of September that will wrap up our experience. So here's the trailer if you haven't seen it. So that has been the experience basically for the last 5 months. And I gotta say, I couldn't ask for a better crew. I'm surrounded by amazing people, and that makes me excited for what is coming next. Sorry. Oh, there we go. And so my space the journey to space is personal. You can see just by this Netflix how it is impacting not only me, but the people around me, and how I'm trying to bring that, bring the entire story to space. We have to be active participants if we want to create that Jedi space, and make connections, and bring our culture and have representation. And so the message that I leave to you is unleash your Jedi space. Be inclusive and complementary, and use your unique space to inspire those within your reach and beyond. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Lisa now for some Q&A.
All right, Cy, thank you so much for sharing your story. Absolutely incredible and inspiring. We heard a lot of great things in the chat. First of all, our viewers and participants are super happy for you. They are inspired by you. You have lots of friends in the audience who are, reaching out to you. My favorite comment was that you are a Shiro. Shero, and I totally feel that and believe that. A lot of people with that trailer having the tissues out. I know I had to have my box, and as I watched the first 2 episodes, I went through a lot of tissues. And I've gone through, a lot of emotions as, you've shared this amazing journey that you're going through with me. And we have a number of questions. And so I'm just jumping over to our questions so that I can ask you some questions. So one of the questions that came in was, you've got this call name now, Leo. Can you tell us a little bit? Deloila wanted to know, how did you get the name Leo?
So call signs are a tradition with the military fighter pilots. And so when I went through jet training, I got to fly a MiG-29 with my commander, Jared. And at the end, all of us, me, Chris, and Haley, Jared already had his call sign from all of the aviation that he's done. So his call sign is Rook. But Haley, Chris, and myself, we did not have call signs. And so we had this fun party where people got to nominate different names for you. And it was fun to see what people were coming up with that they thought best represented you. And so one of the names that somebody came up with was Picasso, because of the art that I've been doing. And then another person stepped up and said, no, Cyan is not a Picasso. Cyan is a modern Renaissance woman because she's adding the A to STEAM, basically. So she's into science, technology, engineering, and math, but she's adding the arts and humanities through her poetry and her arts. And so he said, Cyan is actually Leonardo da Vinci, or Leo. And so I just love that, because to think that somebody would think of me as a Leonardo da Vinci really just is special. So I am now known as Leo.
And I just love that story. And you are such a creator of art, of poetry, and also a teacher, as Leonardo da Vinci was as well. It's just such a perfect name for a call name for you. We have a lot of questions. So there are a lot of questions about the poetry and art contest. And I don't know if you actually know the answers to these questions, Cy, but people are wanting to know how many were chosen, and if the people who were chosen have been alerted that they were chosen. So I don't know if you know the answers to that, because I know that was handled at the district and you've been busy training.
Yes, I can tell you that 30 pieces of art were selected and 32 pieces of poetry were selected. And I was not a part of the selection process. And I do not know if they've been notified yet. But I cannot wait to come back and be able to meet them in person. I can't wait to be able to hand that piece of art that has flown for each of those individuals back to them and say, thank you for letting me take this to space with you. And probably I think what I'll do for the people who have the poems, because they're digital, is print them out and sign them and give them back their poem signed when I come back from space. So I'm just thrilled to be able to have that opportunity. You know, one of the things that's so important to me is that I am going as an educator to space, and being able to bring all of you along with me on this journey.
Absolutely. And I know that it's going to be thrilling for those artists and poets to be able to meet you and hear about what it was like for you to experience the art in that environment. It's going to be absolutely incredible. Lots of questions coming in. And so as we know, you're a creative person all around. How do you feel this experience in being in space is going to impact your creativity overall?
You know, that's a really good question. I'm not sure. You know, there's this idea of the overview effect, that when you leave Earth and you can look back at our beautiful planet, you get this overview sense that there aren't borders, that we're all in it together. And, you know, as a geoscientist, I kind of already feel that way, having been able to travel and teach around the world through Maricopa. And so I'm looking forward to being able to have this view and this sense of awe and wonder, and thinking about how will my science side, my geoscience brain, and then my art and poetry side come together to reconcile that into something that I can share with the world.
Cyan, a question for you. What made you want to be an astronaut? What was the impetus? What was that first spark for you?
You know, it's hard to say. I mean, well, I think it's always been in me, because I was born on Guam, and I was there. My family was there because my dad was a contractor for the Apollo missions. And so he was actively helping to put the first humans on the moon. And I was born 8.5 months after Neil Armstrong stepped foot on the moon. So I consider myself a moon celebration baby. And who knows, maybe some moon dust got in there. But ever since I was a kid, I always looked up to the night sky and wondered, and just thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if I could do that someday? And so I wanted to go into the military and become a military aviator, and then transition to the astronaut program, because back then that's the main way people got selected. You know, that's how all the Apollo astronauts, you know, they came from the military side and had that aviation background. And so when I was a kid, I was in the Civil Air Patrol and I was doing all these things, but then I got glasses. And back then you couldn't be a military aviator if you wore glasses. So I just thought, oh, I'll never be an astronaut. And it wasn't until I was teaching at Maricopa, I was 38 years old, that someone said, hey, you should try out for the NASA astronaut selection process. They're looking for people. And the fact that somebody thought, oh, I would make a great astronaut based on the life that I was living as an explorer and a geoscientist and a teacher was amazing. And I applied, and that's when I got down to that yes/no phone call. And when it was a no, again, I thought, oh, my dreams of being an astronaut are again gone. So I transitioned and I became an analog astronaut, and I was living in Moon and Mars simulations, and just contributing to the advancement of human spaceflight however I could, and thinking, you know what, one day maybe civilian space would be available for me, not realizing that was happening now. And here I am, so thankful and grateful to be a part of the Inspiration4 team.
Awesome, Cy. There are some questions regarding the launch. And so when is the launch? Are they going to have any live feeds? Why 3 days? Also in terms of that, so when, how can they see it? Why 3 days? And what do you think it's going to be like to live in that small space for 3 days with 3 other people?
Okay, so the launch can happen anywhere from the night of September 14th at 8 p.m. That's when our launch window opens, up to, you know, days afterwards. And the reason why we don't have an exact time and date is because of weather. Weather is right now our biggest threat, because you have to have good launch conditions. Not only do we need good launch conditions, but we need good re-entry conditions, because we're going to splash down in the ocean, and it can be off the coast of Florida, either the Pacific or the Gulf. And so what happens as we get closer to our launch window opening up on the night of the 14th, we can look at the weather. SpaceX has a whole team that will look at the weather, and they will determine when the optimal time is to launch and splash down. And so that's when we'll know. Hopefully it will be on the 15th, maybe in the morning, because if you know clouds, they like to build up during the day. So hopefully it will have a beautiful morning launch where it's clear skies. And then we'll be on orbit for 3 days. And the reason why 3 days is because the Dragon capsule, which I have a model right here, well, the capsule, the amount of consumables that you have in here determines how long you can stay on orbit. And so one of the big constraints is carbon dioxide. We breathe out CO2, and it has to be scrubbed out of the air. Some of you may have watched Apollo 13, where they had to replace the scrubbers and stuff. And so it had been that the scrubbers would allow up to 5 days, maybe 6 on orbit. And you don't want to go all the way to the max, because if there's a contingency, you got nothing to do. If there's something, happens. So 3 days seemed like the optimal amount based on consumables. But now it looks like your lithium ion, the scrubbers that we use, I won't go into the technical term, but the scrubbers can last longer than anticipated. So future missions will probably go up for longer orbital times. But for me, 3 days, that sounds great. I'm not going to complain about that. And then someone was asking about living in the capsule. It is a small space, but when you think about what they went up for Gemini and for Apollo, that was even smaller. And so when you get into the Dragon capsule and you get into weightlessness, it's actually a lot more spacious than you would think. And we as a crew did a 30-hour sim in the Dragon simulation. And so we slept in the Dragon and, got used to what it would be like to live in the capsule together. And we came out still smiling and wanting to go up. So I think that's a good sign.
Excellent, Cy. Hang on, I'm getting back to those questions. So what are you going to do up there in those 3 days?
Well, that's another really great question. And so we've got a lot of medical that's happening. We have been giving blood and saliva and even skin tissue to medical before, during, and after. So while on orbit, we're going to be doing things like bringing a butterfly ultrasound, where we'll ultrasound our bellies, our bladders, basically our eyeballs, because there are changes in your eye when you go up to space, some of your veins in your neck, things like that we will be looking at. But we'll also be doing microbial swabs and, donating material for genetic research. And some of you have followed the twin study that happened with Senator Mark Kelly and his brother, Senator Mark and Kelly, his brother, Scott Kelly and Mark. Scott was up for a year, and then Mark's now our senator. They did a twin study for 1 year, and it looked at all of the things that, kind of change on your body. Now, we're only going up for 3 days, but the same people who ran the twin study, well, they're coming in and helping us to do some medical research, because every little bit, even though we're only there for 3 days, we're going up twice as high as the International Space Station. So we're at a higher radiation profile. So all of that data will be useful. Now, for me personally, one of the things that I'm very excited about is that I am going to paint in space. So I have beautiful metallic paints that I'm going to try and paint with. I'm going to do art. I'm going to do photography through the cupola. We have the largest window ever flown in space that's going to go up with us, and we will be able to look back at our beautiful planet. And so those are some things that I'm looking forward to. And then, of course, thinking about broadcasting back to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital because we're trying to raise $200 million for them. One of the things that's really important is that when we solve for space, we solve for Earth, and being able to try to end childhood cancer and give kids like Haley hope. So that $200 million fundraiser is a big part of our mission.
Thank you, Cyan. We do have some questions about your training. And so, we know that this mission is a little bit different than what NASA astronauts have done in the past in terms of training, but there were some questions about how long do astronauts have to train before going into space? What was the most nerve-wracking part of your training? And how was the weightlessness flight?
Well, what's interesting is now in the past, NASA astronauts had to train sometimes longer for a mission, depending on how, what they were doing, some of the technical things that they might have been doing. But now the NASA astronauts are going up on the same spacecraft that we're going up, which is the Dragon spacecraft with SpaceX. So they're doing the same training that we're doing. And so it's not uncommon for us to be going into our training session and the NASA astronauts that are going up next be leaving because they had just finished theirs. And so it's really interesting to see that we are being trained just like they're being trained. The difference is that they're going up to the International Space Station. So that means they have additional training beyond just learning about the Dragon capsule and the Falcon 9 and what SpaceX is providing, because they're going to go up and they're going to stay on the station for 6 months. And so that they need a lot of training on that end also. And so what was the other part of that question, Lisa?
They had two more parts. What was the most nerve-wracking part of the training so far? And then what was the weightlessness flight like?
The most nerve-wracking, it's all been fun, but I would say one of the most challenging was the Mount Rainier hike. And those of you who know me know that I'm a hiker. And so I've hiked the Grand Canyon rim to rim, but I am not a mountaineer, and I learned the difference. And so when it came to hiking Mount Rainier to Camp Muir, there was steep and steeper. And basically it took us 9 hours to hike up in snow. We were in white out kind of, couldn't see more than 50 feet in front of us because of a low laying fog that was kind of engulfing the mountain. And being from Phoenix, you all know, cold, and long, cold, and just challenging. And so, but that's one of the reasons why we did this, is because our commander from the beginning was like, okay, we got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and we need to do some crew bonding. And this is an experience where, I got to 8,000 feet and I was like, oh, altitude sickness starts to set in, and you think that's not that much, but your body and how much you're putting in energy after you've been marching basically up this mountain for 7 hours, and you still have 2 hours to go, and your body's feeling fatigued. And I was like, oh boy, am I going to make it? And then you dig in deep, and then you find that extra strength, that extra reserve to go on. And I know we've all had those days when we're just like, oh, I don't think I can do it. But then you find something in you, that spark that keeps you going, that pushes you that extra distance so that you can make it through. And so that was definitely one of the experiences that challenged me in a good way.
It's always awesome to be a little uncomfortable, isn't it, Cy?
I think that's important. It's pushing yourself onto that edge where you do feel a little bit uncomfortable, but then you're able to, stay there or pause or pull back a little bit and then go a little bit further, because that's when we're uncomfortable. That's when we learn the most about ourselves. And that's when reflection and grit and determination and resilience, all of those things come from being uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And I know that that's part of our job as educators too. We help our students experience that aspect of discomfort so that they can strive and work harder so that you all can achieve your dreams to our students. So definitely, like, there's a lesson learned for all of our students and everyone we work with here at Maricopa, because we all can just keep continuously improving. And I just want to make a note that to all of you that there's some great stuff, well wishes coming in the chat. We are going to save this chat and get it to Dr. Proctor and she can read it when she has time. But I do want you to know that we will make sure that she sees all of your well wishes in the chat. So there are a couple questions about the launch and following what's going on. So there were two questions. One is are there going to be any live feeds?
Yes. So Netflix will live stream it on YouTube. And so you can go there and be able to, that's open access so that you can be able to watch that. I'm not quite sure if SpaceX will also be live streaming it, but definitely Netflix will.
Excellent. And then it sounds like we have some Maricopans who have made travel plans to go to Florida and see you launch. So we're really excited to hear that you're going to be joining Cyan and watching from the beach, some of you. They wanted to know, are there any viewing areas for Maricopans? I'm going to say, if that's the case, reach out to me and I'm going to answer that question if you're really going to be there.
Yeah, anywhere. I just want to say that basically Florida, anywhere along the beach is a great place, whether it's Cocoa Beach or Titusville for watching a launch. That's one of the things that is nice is that you don't have to be far away. I mean, you can be far away, but still experience the launch and see it. And so, but please, anybody who's traveling, be careful just because of what's happening with COVID. And so I just want everybody to be safe and enjoy it.
Absolutely. We've gotten a number of questions about that. Obviously, you're super excited, but do you have any fears, apprehension, concerns?
My biggest fear has always been that this moment wouldn't happen, that I wouldn't get the opportunity to go to space or to do something that really has this grand impact on humanity. And so that whole idea of striving to be it's not about fame or anything like that. It's about having the opportunity to inspire. And so being at South Moutain Community College, I've loved being a professor for the last 20 plus years and being able to, help my students grow and reach beyond what they normally would be able to. But I'd always aspired to be able to have a bigger stage to share that vision with, that vision of a Jedi space and space to inspire. When I talk about space to inspire, a lot of times people think I'm talking about outer space, but no, I'm talking about your space, your unique space to inspire those within your reach and beyond. And so that's something that I've worked with my students who are, 99.9% of them are non-science majors. So part of my job is to get them to, love geology and science, but also to just think about how their unique space can be used to inspire. And so I had always thought, oh, wow, how great would it be to be able to not only develop my space to inspire, but also use it to inspire people on a grander scale. And so I always worried that I'd never be able to do that. And I think that that's one of the reasons why I've always been an explorer and sharing on social media the things that I do and creating videos and doing all of that stuff was that so that I could reach that broader audience. And now I feel so thankful that, through Maricopa and what I've been able to do here, that I'm now at that point in my life, in my career, where I have this unique opportunity to not only be the first at something, but to use this to be able to inspire and to get people to, have that life-changing moment potentially just like I'm having because they've reached for their dreams and they didn't give up and they had that perseverance and that grit and determination. And if I can do that even on a small scale, then I feel like, everything that I've done in my life has been worth it.
And Cyan, I can tell you that you have already done that. So we have a couple technical questions about the mission. So we heard in the trailer that you'll be traveling at 17,500 miles an hour. That's pretty darn fast. How high are you going? And does this qualify? Someone wants to know if this qualifies for the astronaut patch.
Yes, and so the Kármán line is 100 kilometers. We're going to be going up to, 500 kilometers up. So we're going up a lot higher than that. And so when you think about what registers as an astronaut, and so we will definitely be high enough to be able to earn those astronaut wings. But we're going fast enough. So when you're talking about a suborbital flight, when you think about what, for instance, Blue Origin did and Jeff Bezos, they went up over 100 kilometers, hung out for just a little bit and then came back down. And so their time in orbit was, basically around 10 minutes. But what we're doing is that we're going with our Falcon 9 is going to be launching us, and we're going to be going so fast that we're going to actually reach orbital velocity, 17,500 miles per second, so that we will stay in orbit for those 3 days until we're ready to come home. And so this is a really unique opportunity because it's the first time that for all civilians who are being trained to be astronauts are going to be going to space and staying up there for that length of time.
And Cyan, how many times will you orbit the Earth per hour?
We basically will be every 90 minutes. And so we're going to have a lot of sunrises and sunsets. It's going to be beautiful. And so we go around the Earth a lot faster. The further out you are, it's a little bit slower, but it's still fast. And so every 90 minutes, like, woo, around the Earth.
That's awesome. And I'm sorry, it was 17,500 miles per second, not per hour. Is that correct?
No, it's 17,000. No, it should be 17,000. It's per hour.
Per hour. Okay, great.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure I had that right.
Miles per hour.
All right, so we have another question that really ties into the work that you've done at Maricopa. So they're going to be watching as a family, and they're so inspired by you and your journey. They'd like to know how your perspective on the importance of sustainability might change once you experience the view of the Earth from space. Do you think it will supercharge you to be an advocate for climate change?
Oh, that's a good question. I have always been an advocate for climate change and thinking about how we need to be more sustainable. That's one of the reasons why we transitioned at South Moutain Community College from being the geology department to the geoscience department. It was really important that we recognized that sustainable practices, thinking about how not only the environment impacts us, but how we as humans impact the environment, and particularly the things that we're doing when it comes to resource management and climate change. And I've been fortunate that through Maricopa, I've had sabbaticals to support this. In 2012, I was on sabbatical at FEMA's Emergency Management Institute, helping them develop their Science of Disasters curriculum. And so when we're thinking about how our world changes over time, I think that having that perspective of the overview while I'm on orbit, and being able to see, not only just the changes that are happening while we're there in three days, and how our beautiful planet and the weather and the ecosystems, but also thinking about disasters that might be happening around our planet that are impacting people. I think that that's an important perspective for me to gain, and then be able to come back and share that with everybody, that as many people as I can. And so it's an important message for me. I don't know how much it will change while I'm on there. I think a lot of it is going to be that perspective of what I am able to see while I'm on orbit, whether it is some of the disasters that are impacting us, or just having that awe with the beauty of our planet and that thin blue line of our atmosphere. And how fragile it is. And can I capture that in video and in photos and be able to bring that back and share that? I think that's really important.
And so a couple of more technical questions have come in. So we can track the ISS with our apps. Can we track you and the Dragon? And do you have a trajectory of orbit over Arizona at all that you know of?
We will we're at 51.6 inclination, and we will be go over Arizona. One of my things that I put on my list that I would love to get a picture of is our state from space. And so that's on my list, my wish list. And so what will happen is the ISS is easy to track because there's an app. Now, when we launch, a lot of it's going to be dependent on launch date and our final altitude that we're at. And then that will determine, how we ground track across the US. And I'm sure there's going to be somebody out there that is going to set up a tracker for us. Now, the thing is, you won't be able to see us, though. You'll only be able to know that, oh, they're passing over right now. And the reason why is because you can see the ISS at night if the sun is reflecting off of those big solar arrays. But for the Dragon capsule, we don't have that. Instead, the solar panels are on the trunk of the capsule, and as a result, and they wouldn't be big enough, most likely, to be able to show that. So I think your ability to see us from space will be limited, but definitely Google, where is the inspiration for Dragon capsule when we launch, and see who has calculated where we're going to be.
Awesome, Cy. And so a couple other questions. What are you going to eat up there? And is there a bathroom in the Dragon capsule?
Hopefully I'm going to eat pizza. It's something I've always wanted to do in space. And because we're only going up for 3 days, typically you would eat freeze-dried, already prepared freeze-dried meals that come in packs, and we don't have a heating element. We don't have a microwave. So anything that we bring up there is going to be either at room temperature or we can make it cold. And so SpaceX was great because they said, hey, we can pack basically a cooler with you guys so that your first day on orbit, you can have fresh food. What would you like? And a bunch of us said, pizza. And so they're going to actually get pizza that's been cooked and ready to go. And just like you would have cold pizza the next day that you bought and didn't finish in your refrigerator, we could have cold pizza on orbit. We also have ice brewed coffee, so cold brewed coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker, but I think that that's correct, that for those of you who love your morning cup of joe, but they have iced tea for me. And so I'll be able to have tea. My crewmates will be able to have coffee. We'll be able to have some cheese. I'm trying to think of what else we have, but we have a variety of good food, so I'm really happy about it. A lot of it feels like camping. We're camping in space.
Thanks, Cy. And
the bathroom.
The bathroom, yes.
How do you go to the bathroom? Very carefully. One of the things that happens is everything floats. And so there is a bathroom on the Dragon capsule, and there's a funnel for when you need to urinate, and it has a suction that goes to it. But then there's also what they call the Komodo Dragon. And it's a circular suction piece that you get to sit on, where you have to kind of anchor yourself in, because again, you don't want to float away, and you flip that switch and the fan helps suck that down. Interesting fact, no one has ever used the Komodo Dragon, because all of the NASA, so far, there have been 3 crews that have gone up to the International Space Station. It takes about a day when you lift off, and none of them have chosen to christen the Komodo Dragon yet. Now we're going to be on orbit for 3 days. So most likely one of us is going to. Who will be the first? That is really the interesting question. But it's going to be one of those things that we're, again, it's all about advancing human spaceflight and making sure things work and being the first to try things out. I love the laughing emojis that are coming up, because that's making me laugh as I see them.
That's awesome, Cy. And I talk to you all the time, and I've wanted to ask the question, but I hadn't asked it. So I'm so glad whoever asked that question out there asked the question.
We do have a privacy curtain that you put up.
Oh, that's
And
good.
so you get some privacy, but it's the capsule small. So, but you know, that's why being a crew, you're like, everybody close your eyes, turn around, float around.
That's great.
The privacy curtain.
Are you going to sleep?
Yes, I'm excited to sleep because again, we have sleeping bags that you can like strap yourself down, but again, you're floating. So it's this interesting idea of not having like a pillow to rest your head upon, or you know, or feeling that against your body to be floating and sleeping. I think that's going to be one of the most interesting, unique experiences that we are going to have.
Excellent. There are some questions about when you come back. Will we be able to talk to you again, hear about your experiences at Maricopa?
Oh, absolutely. So one of the things that I'm so grateful that I got to be able to be reassigned to be able to do this and become the, basically astronaut in residence for Maricopa, because I wouldn't have been able to do this. This is a full-time thing that I'm taking on. And for that, I'm forever grateful. And one of the things that I'd like to do is we'll probably do another Q&A like this of what it was like to come back. But after post-COVID, when we can go and have a symbol again, I would love to be able to go to every single campus and give a presentation at each campus as my form of thank you for all the support that all of you have given me. I really appreciate it.
Excellent, Sai. So there some folks have come in and asked about the artwork again. The artwork, Cyan's taking some pieces of artwork to space, and those pieces that she's taking to space will be returned to the students. Cyan will bring them to you, and we have not announced who those winners are that we know of, and so that will be coming sometime soon. So and we've gotten some great. Oh, go ahead, Ty.
I just want to say, just have some patience. It'll take a little bit of time for that to happen. And ideally, because again, just being mindful of the COVID right now, I would love to be able to do kind of like a celebration where we get together and I get to meet all of you at once. And so maybe it's something that we try to track for in the spring, and I can be able to do that just because it would be nice to be able to meet you in person versus sending it to you and not have that happen. So ideally, if we could hold off a little bit, you'll be able to get together and celebrate this historic moment in person with all of you.
Excellent. And the foundation would love to sponsor an event for you. So with students and donors and all sorts of things. So there will be all sorts of great opportunities when it's safe to do so. I'm sorry that we couldn't get to all of your questions in our hour, but thank you all so much for all of your questions. You can see the documentary on Netflix. It's called Countdown, and it is absolutely amazing. And even just talking about it gives me chills. And just really appreciate everybody coming today. And Cyan, for you, Jared, Haley, and Chris at Astra.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. And thank you to everybody who tuned in and has supported me throughout my entire career at Maricopa and South Mountain. I appreciate all of you and all of the love and support that everybody has shown me. So thanks. And tune in. Liftoff is coming in next week.
Thanks, Sai.